All right, hello everyone. Come on in. Be sure to like and share this video. Thank you in advance. Okay, so here's some information on Jay-Z and Buzby, honey. Buzby is so desperate to get this lawsuit that Jay-Z filed against him tossed. He's now claiming that they made some sort of backdoor deal and that Jay-Z and his team have reneged on it. Okay, that's what he's saying. Okay, and I find it also interesting because here's the thing. Tony Busby's a whole lawyer. If they made a deal, why didn't he get it in writing? Okay, that's what I'd like to know. If they made a deal behind closed doors, they made some sort of agreement. Being an attorney, why wouldn't you have gotten it in writing? Okay. If you didn't get it in writing, then it didn't happen. You just got played. Okay. And that's if he's even telling the truth, because it seems like Tony Busby, has turned out to be, a bit unethical and possibly a liar. So let's talk about it. Tony Busby is taking legal steps to try to dismiss a Jay-Z lawsuit against him, claiming they struck a deal and that Jay-Z reneged. But Jay-Z's camp says Busby is full of it. Now, Busby, the Texas lawyer famous for representing 120 alleged Diddy victims, filed new legal docs on Monday to dismiss the defamation lawsuit that Jay-Z filed against him in Alabama. So Tony was representing the Jane Doe who claimed that Jay-Z and Diddy raped her in New York back in 2000. So she ultimately dropped the great lawsuit, and Jay-Z then sued her and Busby, both in Alabama, where she lives, over bringing the case in the first place. Because, of course, he said it was frivolous and that Busby knew that it had no merit, and also that he didn't vet her, and that they had video or audio of her giving inconsistent statements. Now, in the docs obtained by TMZ, Busby claims that Jay-Z used his fame and fortune to bully his accuser into changing her tune and dropping her great lawsuit. Busby argues that Jay-Z is suing him in the wrong court and failed to lay out a legal basis for the suit. He also claims there was some sort of agreement made. Now, in the docs, Busby says eventually the relentless pressure that Mr. Carter and his associates placed upon Doe became too much for her. On February the 4th of 2025, an agreement to resolve the litigation was reached between Doe and Mr. Carter through their attorneys, which included a voluntary dismissal of the Southern District of New York action. Now, Jay-Z's camp says Tony is living in a fantasy land, okay? They're like, Busby, clearly you made that up. They said he's living in a fantasy land when he suggests that they reached an agreement. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, said that that's a total lie. He brought a false case, lost badly, and was forced to dismiss quickly. End of story. Now, here's the thing. I don't see them making a case with him, an agreement with him either, just thinking with common sense. Okay, don't even need critical thinking skills to come to the conclusion, because here's the thing. There was so much evidence that came out showing that her statements were inconsistent, that she lied, that she was not a viable or credible witness. There was too much going on. They had audio of her saying certain things that she didn't say, and then going on another audio with Busby and saying something else. So with all of that evidence, why would they need to make a deal? The fact of the matter was Busby had no case. Okay, it was frivolous. It was without merit. That's why it should have been dismissed as it was. So I don't believe they made a deal either. I think Alex Spiro is telling the truth. And Busby, like I said, he's been known to tell a lie or two before, in my opinion. Now, Tony Busby's lawyer, Mark E. Kosowitz, told TMZ that Spiro's statement that there was no agreement is a total fabrication. There was an exchange of emails between me and Spiro, which set forth the agreement very clearly. As part of that agreement, Spiro agreed to withdraw the Rule 11 motions for sanctions that he had brought against Mr. Busby's law firm. Well, now, if that's the case, that should be easily proven or disproven. All you have to do is produce the emails. That's not hard. Now, Kasowitz continued saying, we agreed to withdraw the lawsuit that Jane Doe had brought for a rape against Jay-Z and Mr. Combs, even though Jane Doe continued to maintain that the allegations in that lawsuit were true. And Jay-Z and Spiro agreed not to send any more people to harass and intimidate Jane Doe and her family. 1 week later, Jay-Z and his lawyer breached that agreement flagrantly by sending supposed investigators to harass and intimidate Jane Doe and her family. Well, here's the thing. If you made an agreement with them, that they would not have people coming to harass her, and then you claim that they flagrantly breached the agreement just days later, a week later. Why would you have made another agreement with them and trusted them, okay, in good faith that they would be honorable in the agreement? You see how that makes no sense, people? Please pay attention. Okay, I don't believe it. Now, Spiro has acknowledged in court docs that Kasowitz did not reach out to him about dismissing the Jane Doe suit against Jay, and says that he told him Jay-Z would never settle the lawsuit or pay any money to resolve it, given it was a heinous false accusation. Spiro says that Kasowitz did request that they stop investigating Busby's law firm, okay? Doesn't mention anything about harassing little Miss Jane Doe. Said that they had an agreement they would stop investigating Busby's law firm. And if you remember, I reported that all to you, that basically they said the reason Alex Spiro, if you remember, I told you all, I think the video was titled something about Alex Spiro exposes Tony Busby, where I told you that Alex Spiro said in his own declaration that the reason they dropped that case, you know, without, they dismissed it with prejudice so that it couldn't be refiled, is because Busby was upset and concerned because Alex Spiro and his team were investigating Busby's firm to find out if Busby had previously filed any frivolous cases that weren't vetted and then told any sorts of lies or did anything unethical. When they started looking into that, he claims that Busby basically got nervous and didn't want them digging too deep. So that's why he said Busby went ahead and agreed to dismiss the lawsuit. Okay? So he says there was no explicit agreement to back off of Jane Doe. It's just not true. Fact is, the Jane Doe filed to dismiss her case with prejudice, meaning that it can't be refiled. And in that filing, there's no mention of any agreement with Jay-Z. That's what Alex Spiro had said about it. So, you know, I'm going to have to roll with Alex Spiro on this one. I think he's the one telling the truth. He's the one that's more believable, in my opinion, than Tony Busby could ever be at this point. So, at the end of the day, Tony Busby is just desperate. Maybe he should get down on bended knee and beg Jay-Z's forgiveness and apologize for all the things that he said and the narratives that he tried to paint and push, allegedly. And then maybe Jay-Z will just go ahead and dismiss the case, you know, because who wants to be going to court anyway? And it's not like Jay-Z needs the money, but I don't think it's going to happen because they pissed Jay-Z off so much so, and Jay-Z has a point to prove. And as I told you previously, he wants to set precedent, okay? He doesn't want people to be able to be accused by accusations that people make in frivolous lawsuits, and then you have to fight to try to restore your reputation because you've already been demonized and vilified in the court of public opinion. Now, with that all being said, I clearly think Jay-Z is nefarious. I'm just telling you what Jay-Z said, okay, and what he wants. So I don't think he's going to drop the case against Busby. Busby's going to have to eat that. And maybe this will serve as a lesson to him and a constant reminder that the next time he's out there trying to chase ambulances and grab bags, that it might behoove him to, in fact, make sure that he vets the cases and the clients and does his own due diligence before he goes and files. And also, if he should be filing in a state to where he isn't licensed to practice, that just maybe he wants to go ahead and file pro hoc vice so that he can get approved, and so that if he does have to go to trial, he's already able to practice in that court. Okay? Because these are just some of the things that he messed up on. Okay, with that all been said, honey, I love you all to life. Drop me a comment to let me know what you think about Busby. Until next time, I'll talk to you all again soon.